was thinking about design, British design. I mean, I wonder what sort of the relative health of British design is. I mean, Alice, you've been following it for a few years now, and you look at it, look internationally too. I just wonder, what's the reputation of British design per se, and has it gone through an evolution, and where how would you describe it?
Well, whenever I go to a different country, one that we would tend to associate with a strong design culture, like say the Netherlands, which has an incredible reputation for design, particularly for product and furniture design at the moment, they're always moaning and groaning and grumbling and talking about the crisis of Dutch design and what do I think they should do to address it. And I think that in Britain we have much the same tendency, and I think actually that's a sort of healthy criticality. You don't thrive and flourish unless you're constantly questioning and challenging yourself. I actually think this is a really great time for British design, in that really since the 80s, British designers individually have always been cited as among the most gifted internationally, and that's true for product and furniture and home design as it is for fashion design, automotive design and architecture. And we've continued to produce these really inspiring, very ingenious figures who've been genuine innovators in the field, and this has meant that not only have Britain's exports benefited from it generally, but international students have come to British design schools to study, so it's been hugely beneficial all round. Our design culture is still very dynamic, very vigorous and very healthy. Whether our design schools of the future are going to sustain this, unfortunately, there's currently a big question mark on, given the cuts that they've had to bear. But right now, I think if you looked economically at the real benefits for Britain, design would be among the top. I think it's a huge natural strength for us.
Alice, I completely agree, and actually, and I'm sure Jude will agree, it's the retailer's responsibility as part of that to ensure it continues to live, to engage with that actually, because the reality is design in the big world needs to be commercial, and we need to be able to sell product on the back of it for allow it to live for a long time. At Harrods, and I know there are lots of different campaigns going on with the different stores, but at Harrods we're about to launch in August this year a campaign around British Bespoke, and that's twofold. That's the craftsmanship element of what we actually haven't mentioned, but in my world is super important, which is being able to bespoke products specifically to a customer's needs. And interestingly, many of our international brands can't do that because of quantities, minimum quantities, actually just lead times, whereas actually in Britain, and the manufacturer in Britain can allow that to happen, not just fabulously and with a lot of provenance behind it, but actually swiftly with minimum quantities. So bespoke element is super important, and the British then brings that to life. And hopefully, ideally, the plan is that we work with some of those very new up-and-coming designers, work with the colleges to bring brands, whether they be British or international, but the British design element together, and hopefully give them a window to start to evolve a successful career.
I think you mentioned the word commerciality. I think it does have to sell at the end of the day. And I think British design actually brings a sort of practicality to it as well, which doesn't mean it's downgraded the design element of it. But I mean, I think in London, I've got two sons who live in very small flats, and the way they've used design to actually make things work in a small space, even mixing bowls that go inside each other, and scales you can fold back into one little strip and then the drawer. If you haven't got the space, and the design is actually meeting a need. So there's a practical element to the design, I think, and that's. And colour is a whole area too. They're redesigning the seasons from a retail point of view. They're recreating the demand, even when people have got the product, because they, colouring, say, well, it's the wrong colour for this season. Great from a retail perspective, because you've got to sell it again, haven't you? And I think one of the manufacturers last year, one of the awards ceremony we was doing toasters with different coloured panels in it, so you can change the panels to suit the season, which actually may not be a good thing, because we'd rather sell the toaster again, but actually it's probably a practical thing to say, this is design and fun, and we're aware that you want to change colours.
I think consumers want to make quite rapid changes in their homes as well these days. People are a lot more fashionable and keen to make changes often. I
think so often retailers tend to, in my world, the independent, price shouldn't dominate, because people actually, they're buying things too cheaply. They don't actually want them as cheap as they see them sometimes. They want to have a product they aspire to. And I think British-led products give you the confidence that this has actually got something behind it. It's not just here and today, gone tomorrow. There's a design behind it. The product's good. It's safe. I can use it. And I think that's where British design, not always British manufactured, we've got to be honest about this. The design is probably British-led. Sometimes it's manufactured as well, but sometimes we have to go abroad for the manufacturing angle. But I think the actual design side, we've got so many good schools in this design colleges in the country. It's fantastic.
And the students that I speak to and that have worked with in the last few years are also really embracing new technologies, which I think is really exciting. There's no fear. I mean, I suppose there never has been from students, but there's no fear on 3D printing or how they're producing things, and also where there is lack of possibility to make something in an existing industry. They're all really exciting to go and invent the thing that makes their design as well, which I think is a really great shift. And I don't know if that's just the UK that do that so much, but I've met a lot of British students who've had to make the production technique for the product that they wanted to make because it wasn't there for them, and it's almost become part of that journey.
Yeah, it makes them more resourceful and ingenious. I also think that a huge economic boon for British design at the moment is the sort of resurgence of entrepreneurialism. And obviously a lot of that has to do with the internet. So access to alternative sources of funding, they can market their own goods, they can identify potential collaborators more easily using the web, and they have access to digital production technology. And I think that has really helped British design, particularly in this sector, because if we were all sitting here talking about our marvellous heritage, that's absolutely fine and it's wonderful and it's a great asset for any nation and any industry to have. But I think what's so special about British design is it's constantly reinventing and redefining that heritage, and undoubtedly digital technology and entrepreneurialism are making that process much easier now, and I think that's very exciting.
It really is free market enterprise, and you almost go back to Darwin and him talking about survival of the fittest, by which he didn't mean the strongest, he meant the thing that was the most fit for the environment. And it's the same with design. If you design enough things, you will find the right thing that the customer wants. Can I follow up on a word you used, Alan, fun? Do you think that's important? I mean, when I walk past your windows at Selfridges at Christmas, I enjoy the fun of it. Is fun a big part of design? Is it important?
I think fun is part of life, really. If you're in retail, you've got to make the thing fun for the customer. Why the customers are going to come in having a boring experience. And I think if you go into a shop and they've got the same things as they had last year, you just think, oh, I'm never going to go into that shop again. You want new things. So it's a challenge, really. The designers have challenged the retailers. The retailers have then got to challenge the customers. And those three have got to work together to create a commercial output that gives good margins and whatever. I mean, from an independence point of view, we love new design because that gives you a differentiator. We don't want clone town Britain where everything is the same. If you can go, I mean, the springboard for some new designs is independence. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes they'll choose a different route to market. But it enables you to be different. And you can say, well, it's worth going to that town rather than that town because I expect to see something different when I get there. You don't want to be like a Martian. You drop here and say every town is the same. So I think fun is absolutely critical. And each part of the supply chain has got to make sure they bring a bit of fun into it, because if we all just do the same boring things and play safe, and that's where the spring fair comes in, I think, really, is actually, I take my wife sometimes very dangerous because she sees things, but luckily she can't buy them when she gets there. But she says, you see all this product at the spring fair, but you can't buy it when you actually get out in the high streets because the retailers are being too safe. So I think the designers are doing their work, and perhaps the retailers need to say, well, we need to pick up some of this design and run with it. And I think a lot of my training is accountancy. If actually you looked at any shop and said, what 10% isn't working, and I'm going to get rid of that this year, put some new product in. And if you're going to put new product in, if you're British and you can put British design stuff in there, why not do that? Because that gives you a chance. You may not work, but you've got to take some gambles in life and bring that word back, fun and excitement. And I'm sure you've got plenty of exciting products.
No, I'm all for the fun of it. I actually believe that brand management is a really important thing, and I try to regard it in the same way as you regard a marriage or a relationship. You are what you are and you stay what you were, but you've got to add a little bit to it all the time and just make you a fun person to be with in many, many ways. So yeah, I'm all for fun.
And customer engagement. Yes. is absolutely key, and actually what's very interesting, and it's fabulous to hear actually, is I believe that's responsibility of both the retailer and the brand or the product. And when it works super successfully is when those two things come together and you're both working towards the same goal. It's not enough anymore just to put a product on a shelf. Absolutely doesn't work. You know, it's all about that customer journey. Some of it's around the story, some of it's about bringing to life the craftsmanship, and actually sometimes it's about really shouting about a new innovation that's out there on the market, but it is how you bring that to life that's actually everybody's responsibility. And interestingly, hopefully we'll see some of that at the Spring Fair.